As we delve into the intriguing past of the Wild West, one can't help but be captivated by cowboy shootouts, fearless gunfighters, and the rugged, untamed frontier. These stories form the very essence of American folklore, with the daring exploits of outlaws and the unwavering determination of lawmen leaving an indelible mark in history. However, amid the grand tales and dramatic conclusions, there exist a handful of legendary figures whose deaths were unadorned, simple chapters in the genuine Wild West narrative. Their lives concluded without fanfare, a stark contrast to the sensationalism often associated with this iconic era. In this video, we'll unravel these lesser-known but equally compelling stories of how these remarkable individuals met their end on the wild frontier. Number 1. Bat Masterson. Having served as a gunslinger for the initial part of his life, Bat Masterson went on to become a sheriff after crossing paths with Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp played a pivotal role in convincing Masterson that he would be well suited to help bring order to the tumultuous streets of Dodge City, Kansas. Masterson agreed, in part, due to his two brothers already serving in law enforcement near Dodge City. His tenure as sheriff was marked by both achievements and sorrows, including the heart-wrenching loss of his brother, Ed, who fell victim to a fatal gunshot. Upon reaching the age of 49, Masterson grew weary of the ceaseless chaos of the Wild West. He yearned for a more tranquil life in the eastern part of the country, alongside his wife. The couple relocated to New York, where Masterson transitioned into a career as a newspaper journalist and served as a United States Marshal for several years. Sadly, in 1921, Bat Masterson's life came to an end when he suffered a sudden heart attack while diligently working at his newspaper desk. Number 2. Doc Holliday. John Henry, known as Doc Holliday, started his career as a dentist in Texas. However, his love for gambling soon led him down a different path. He became fast friends with Wild West legends like Wyatt Earp and found himself in his fair share of shootouts, card games, and nights of heavy drinking. Unfortunately, all that drinking took a toll on his health, especially since he already had tuberculosis. In a desperate bid to get better, Holliday checked himself into a sanitarium in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. But in 1887, at the age of 36, this Wild West character drew his last breath in the quiet confines of that sanitarium bed. Number 3. Wyatt Earp. In the Old West, there was a man named Wyatt Earp. Back in the 1800s, he wasn't exactly a household name. It's funny how things change, though. After Wyatt's time was up, someone wrote a book about his crazy life, especially that big showdown at the OK Corral. And that's when he became famous. Towards the end of his journey, when he'd hung up his guns for good, Wyatt packed his bags and headed to Los Angeles. Believe it or not, he became a kind of unpaid coach for those newfangled Western movies. He even became pals with some big-shot Western actors, like William Hart and Tom Mix. They were so close that when Wyatt passed away in 1929, these famous actors carried him to his final resting place. There's a story that says Tom Mix shed a tear or two during the farewell. The Wild West sure had its share of legends. Number 4. Calamity Jane. Calamity Jane was a true frontier character. She'd sometimes dress as a man and worked for the Pony Express. And, well, her profession wasn't just delivering mail. She even joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show and became famous for her sharpshooting on horseback. As her fame grew, so did her love for a good time and heavy drinking. But that lifestyle took a toll. Calamity Jane battled alcoholism for years until it sadly took her life at 51. There's a tale that says she's buried next to her friend, Wild Bill Hickok, although it's said that Wild Bill didn't feel quite the same way about her. Some say her burial was one final playful trick by the legendary sharpshooter. Number 5. Buffalo Bill Cody. Buffalo Bill Cody, a name etched in history during the late 1800s thanks to his famous Wild West show. In the winter of 1917, Cody passed away while visiting his sister in Denver, his final journey marked by kidney failure. This is a crucial date because, in Cody's most recent will, he asked to be laid to rest atop Lookout Mountain in Colorado, a spot with awe-inspiring vistas. However, the mountain road was blocked by snow in January. To honor Cody's final wish, his body spent half a year in cold storage, needing 6 embalmings. During this time, debates raged on whether he should rest in Cody, Wyoming, the town he founded, following a previous will's instructions. Most believe Cody indeed found his resting place on Lookout Mountain, but persistent conspiracies suggest his remains secretly journeyed to Wyoming. Olinger's mortuary, where Cody's body stayed for those 6 months, has an intriguing transformation. It's now a restaurant known as Linger. Number 6, Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid, just a young buck, was a mere 18 years old when he'd already racked up around 17 notches on his gun belt. The law was forever nipping at his heels. Fast forward a bit, Sheriff Pat Garrett finally got his mitts on Billy, and he was dragged to court, given the nod to swing from a rope. But a few days before his necktie party in 1881, Billy gave his captors the slip, leaving 2 lawmen stretched out on Boot Hill. Garrett tracked him like a bloodhound for 3 long months, until Lady Luck tipped her hat his way. One night, at the Maxwell Ranch in New Mexico, Garrett sneaked into Billy's bedroom, lurking in the shadows. When Billy strolled in, Garrett's 6-shooter ended the story. As for Billy's demise, it's a yarn spun with more twists than a Sidewinder's trail. Some folks reckon it might not have been the real Billy who bit the dust that night, maybe just a look-alike. Years later, a pair of claim jumpers swore they were Billy the Kid, but their tales were wilder than a Mustang on a full moon night, and no one could rightly say if they were shooting straight. Number 7, Butch Cassidy. Bandits like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid might conjure images of the young Paul Newman and Robert Redford, but the real Butch and Sundance Kid lived lives as colorful as their Hollywood counterparts. Hauling in an average of $35,000 per robbery, Butch's gang, known as the Wild Bunch, seemed to be out of reach thanks to Butch's meticulous planning before each job. However, after many years of living on the wrong side of the law, Butch and Sundance decided to call it quits and head down to South America for a fresh start. They kept a low profile until a rumored payroll heist in Bolivia. Bolivian troops surrounded their hideout, and a fierce shootout broke out, resulting in one of the men getting injured. That night, 2 gunshots pierced the silence, and their lifeless bodies were found, both with gunshot wounds, Sundance Kid between the eyes, and Butch with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his temple. Yet, a heated debate still rages on about whether these men were indeed the legendary pair. Many claim to have seen Butch Cassidy for years after the supposed shootout. Number 8, Jesse James. Outlaws like Jesse James were a thorn in the side of Missouri's governor, Thomas Crittenden. His personal mission? To put Jesse behind bars. After a failed attempt at robbing a bank, Jesse and his brother Frank decided it was time to go incognito. However, Frank had a change of heart and left the criminal life, which meant Jesse had to search for new recruits who weren't particularly loyal. This is where Bob Ford comes into the story. Bob's brother, Charlie, had recently joined Jesse's gang. When they got wind of the new 1,000 bounty placed on Jesse by Crittenden, Bob convinced Charlie that they should team up against their former comrade. They struck a deal with Crittenden, who promised them the reward money and a clean slate. Fast forward a few months, and the Ford brothers found themselves living in one of Jesse's hideouts. On a scorching day, Jesse, feeling the heat, took off his coat and his guns. Seizing the moment, Bob Ford, with Jesse standing on a chair to dust a picture, shot him in the back of the head. Number 9, Belle Starr. In the heart of the Wild West, Belle Starr wasn't exactly your typical outlaw. She might have had a brush with the law, serving 9 months for horse thievery, but after that she kept her nose clean. Yet, her life was far from ordinary. She had a knack for attracting trouble, often running with the wrong crowd, including 2 husbands who met their end in dramatic shootouts. It was her association with shady characters that eventually led to her downfall. One day, while riding back home, 2 shots rang out, striking Belle in the back. The identity of her attacker remained a mystery, shrouding her death in rumors and mystery. Some even whispered that her own son, Ed, might have had a hand in the tragic event.